Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Shelf Isolation. This week I'm going to be talking about Captain Corelli's Mandolin. So this is a really nice book that you could do for coursework. It is not necessarily a happy book, but it's certainly less controversial than books I've spoken about previously. That's not to say that it's like silly or daft, like there's some quite deep themes in there that you could talk about. But if you were wanting something a little bit more approachable, perhaps this might be one to go for. So I only read this book last year and gave it a little skim through over the past week. And it's one that I really struggled to get into initially. And I think that's because you're given so many voices in the book. And whilst it took me a while to get into it, actually, once I'd sort of got maybe a third of the way in, I loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. So if anyone's read it or would like to read it, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. There's also a film version that is apparently quite good, but I'm yet to see myself. So if you've seen the film version and want to tell me about it, please do so. So, set on the Greek island of Kefalonia, it follows the story of Dr. Ioannis, who's the doctor of the village where it's set, and he's so eccentric and strange. So he lives with his daughter Pelagia, who so her mother died a few, we imagine maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, in the story, from when the story starts. So we never meet the mother. So it's just the father and daughter, Dr. Ioannis and Pelagia. And they have quite a close relationship, but Pelagia takes on a lot of the roles of the housekeeping, and Dr. Ioannis is the doctor for the village, although he has no formal qualifications at all. But he manages to cure everyone using herbal remedies and the such like, and he's obviously very intelligent as well. And yes, both of them are really quite eccentric. They have a pet goat, and Dr. Ioannis is complaining about the goat, and it's all quite funny and humorous, their relationship. So Pelagia is about 17 or 18, I imagine. And she falls in love with Mandras, who's a local fisherman who's described as being super handsome. Like, he's so buff, and when he's described on the fishing boat, I think the sun is shining on his muscles, and the water's kind of rolling off them. It's all very dramatic and romantic. So she falls in love with him. Obviously we kind of gather this is just lust, teenage lust. But nevertheless, she falls in love with him and they start dating. Dr. Ioannis does not approve at all. He says no, he's not good enough for you. But nevertheless, he proposes to her and she accepts. But is really embarrassed because Dr. Ioannis refuses to pay a dowry. So that's some money that the wife's parents give to the family of the husband. When couples get married, that doesn't happen anymore that I know of. It's a very old-fashioned thing. I think in some cultures it might still happen, but certainly not in the UK. So yeah, it says sex is outdated. We should not be doing that. He should be happy to marry you. They should be kind of accept your honour as it is. And then some time passes and they decide to get married after. So there's a war coming up, and they decide to get married after that, after the Second World War. So off he goes to fight, and she writes to him, but later we learn that he can't read, and he doesn't reply to any of her letters, and he's never admitted to her that he can't read. But so she's kind of worried about him, but then she kind of gets over it and accepts that he's probably dead, and kind of does things to kind of take her mind off it. But then he returns and his hair is all matted and she doesn't recognise him at first. And during this time she cares for him and looks after him. And that's when she realises that she wants to be a doctor. But he isn't very supportive, and he just kind of their relationship at this point is sort of tense. He maybe kind of realises that she doesn't love him anymore. But then he goes off to fight again. He goes back after his leave. So she's sort of still binded to Mandras at this point. So their relationship is very much cemented. And she's kind of like figuring a way to get out of it. She has realised that she doesn't really love him, but then feels obliged because she's made this commitment to him. And then after some time has passed, so there's quite a lot of subplots as well to this story. This is just like the main plot that I'm talking about now. So the Italian army come to the village, and they sort of, because the Italians wanted to invade Greece, and with them Captain Corelli comes. So it's not until maybe over a third of the way into the book that we start to see Captain Corelli, the person in the title. It's quite a lot of build up, but when you meet him, wow, like amazing. And obviously the Italians invading, the locals are not happy about this. But after some time has passed, they all sort of warm to them, and it's just all quite funny and lovely and strange, and all this mixture of people, but they're getting along, even though you kind of feel like they shouldn't be getting along. Anyway, Captain Corelli stops with Pelagia and Dr. Yanis. He's sort of forced his commanding officer has kind of suggested that he needs to be stopping in their home, but he feels really guilty because he has to take Pelagia's bed, and obviously Dr. Yanis hates him initially, and Pelagia and him fall in love. But this is not the end of the story. Like, it's not they get married and live happily ever after at all, but I think that's about it for what I'm going to tell you about the plot. So we've got some romance here, but we've also got some really lovely strong friendships to talk about as well. So in terms of themes, you could probably talk about friendships, you can talk about family and gender. So Pelagia in a lot of ways flouts gender expectations. Another character that flouts gender expectations is Mandras's mum. Her name has slipped my mind for the moment. I hope it might come back to me later. They are not typical women at all. And Mandras's mum actually disowns him at one point for his treatment of Pelagia. But I won't say any more about that. Other things you can talk about with regards to friendship. So Pelagia and Mandras's mum form quite a strong friendship. The soldiers who invade form strong friendships with each other in kind of quite an unusual situation. Interestingly as well, so there's German soldiers there as well as the Italian soldiers. And they form a friendship and get quite close. It makes us realise that actually they're just young boys, but then one of the German soldiers, Weber, actually is in charge of killing some of the Italian soldiers, and it gets really quite sad. Another thing you can think about is power structures as well. So you could talk about fascism. So there's a little bit written from the perspective of Mussolini. And then there's power structures within the village as well. Also, we get Mandras, so Pelagia's fiance. He joins up with the communists because he hates the fascists, but actually that we come to realise actually that's all about power as well. So they're kind of fighting against the fascists because they hate this kind of power that they're enforcing on others, but actually the communists are doing exactly the same thing. So power is a really interesting thing to think about too. So that's about it for Captain Corelli's Mandolin. It's quite a chunky book, but yeah, it's really, really lovely to read. And even if you're not thinking about doing it for coursework, I just really enjoyed reading it. It's a really nice one to kind of read and then watch the film, which I'm hopefully going to do during this isolation period. Okay, thanks everyone.